am. We okay?
Come off on this. You'll have to look at this monitor, I guess, whenever that comes up.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Ready?
The Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. We do have a few more people in the audience, still socially distanced if we want to put a view of that, just to let people out in the community know that we are beginning to be back in business, of course, as we go through the next weeks and months. Hopefully with more and more vaccinations, we'll be able to resume somewhat more to a normal order. But just to let people know what's being said at the federal and state level, we are going to be likely masking it up. I hate to even put dates on it, but I would at least think through the summer. Hope that's okay with everyone. Please continue to do that. Socially distance, wear your masks. I think as our signs say, we're all in this together. Just a quick announcement about Open Podium. Open Podium is an opportunity for Eden Prairie residents to address the City Council on issues related to Eden Prairie City government prior to each City Council meeting, which typically are held the first and the third Tuesday of each month. Our open podium times are from 6:30 to 6:55 here in this council chamber. If you wish to speak at Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office at 952-949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with your name, phone number, and subject matter, just so that we can be better prepared for you. If time does permit, after scheduled speakers are finished, the mayor will open the floor to unscheduled speakers. Open Podium is not recorded or televised. If you have any questions about Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office. Mr. Getcho, we do have a proclamation, a presentation, an award announcement. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we do have a few items here from our Human Rights and Diversity Commission that they're going to be introducing. But before we do that, we do have our annual proclamation for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then it's requested that there's no action required, but that you read that proclamation, and then we'll move into the contest.
Absolutely, I will do so. All right, this is a proclamation, the City of Eden Prairie, Hennepin County, Minnesota. Whereas the City of Eden Prairie City Council and Human Rights and Diversity Commission sponsors the Human Rights Award program that recognizes those who work to create an inclusive community spirit through their actions, activities, and programs. And whereas the City of Eden Prairie recognizes that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream and dedicated his life to helping freedom exist for all people through his commitment to human rights and his nonviolent philosophy. And whereas the City of Eden Prairie reaffirms its commitment to fostering diversity in our community through the Eden Prairie Manifesto. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Eden Prairie hereby proclaims 2021 as a year to celebrate human rights and diversity, and asks all residents to continue their commitment and concern for equal rights for all persons, to dedicate themselves to helping those who do not yet share in that freedom, and to join the City of Eden Prairie in recognizing and celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. Ronald A. Case, Mayor, City of Eden Prairie. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're pretty excited that along with that proclamation and what we typically do at our council meeting, our HRDC, put together a contest, a words in action contest. And I believe our two of our commissioners. One of our regular commissioners, Assad Alloyd, is here, and one of our student commissioners, Jillian Pearson, is here to talk a little bit about this contest and actually introduce those that are contest winners. And we are going to see the great work that these students did.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jilly Pearson, and I'm a student commissioner on the Human Rights and Diversity Commission. I'm really excited to introduce our Words in Action contest. This is a contest hosted by the City of Eden Prairie, the EP Human Rights and Diversity Commission, and Eden Prairie Community Foundation to recognize the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Youth participants were asked to select a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and use art or writing to express their thoughts on the quotes, as well as ways that they can carry forward the legacy of Dr. King. We received numerous submissions and evaluated them for quality and relevance to the theme. The review committee selected 4 winners and 3 additional finalists. The 4 winners have joined us tonight to share their pieces with council. We want to extend a thank you to the council members for taking the time to recognize the winners, the Eden Prairie Community Foundation for providing cash prizes to the winners and finalists, the Parks and Rec staff for partnering to host the contest, and of course, Eden Prairie Youth for participating. I'm so happy to invite Assad up to introduce our winners.
Thank you, Chili. My name is Assad Al-Waid on behalf of the Eden Prairie Human Rights and Diversity Commission. I would like to introduce Martin Luther King Words of Action contest winners. The first winner I would like to welcome to the podium is Siri Manikanda. Would you please come and share with us the work that you have done and any other thing that you would like to share with us?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. In the first few paragraphs of my writing, I wrote about why Martin Luther King Jr. fought for racial justice. He fought for racial justice because he didn't want any child to be discriminated like he was. When Martin Luther King Jr. was young, he was treated differently because of his color, and he thought that everyone should be treated with the same respect. On April 10, 1960, at a speech at Spelman College, Martin Luther King Jr. quoted, "If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving." I thought this meant that no matter how tough life is for you at this moment, you have to keep moving forward and never giving up. You have to at least achieve something throughout your life. Martin Luther King Jr. kept going forward no matter how many people discriminated and criticized him. He fought for us and the better of our country, and I would like to be a part of that. So some ways for me to help our community is by raising awareness. When we raise perception about racial justice, more people tend to pay attention to how they're treating people. Thank you.
Siri, what grade are you in?
I'm in 6th grade.
Very impressive. Very good. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Siri. Congratulations. I would like to introduce the second winner, Shania Kumar, who is here. Welcome, Shania.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Before I say something, I just want to thank my family for always supporting me in whatever I do. So I did a visual art for the quote, "If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means keep moving forwards." And when I first read this quote, it reminded me of privileges and how every person is born with a certain privilege or without a certain privilege, and they can't help it. But what we all can help is how we correctly use that privilege in our life. And according to me, the correct way of using a privilege is by sharing it with the people among us. And like you can see in my artwork, the person who's able to fly is sharing his privilege by guiding the rest towards the ultimate goal that we all have, to strive for happiness. Thank you.
That's amazing. And I'm so impressed with your artwork. Nice job. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Congratulations, Shanya Kumar. I would like to also introduce the third winner, Miriam Marsan.
Hello, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm just going to be reading my work. And so my quote is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is our nature to hold ourselves first, above everything and everyone. We all do it. Some display it differently than others, but it will always be a part of who we are as human beings. This quote by the great and past Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. asks us a question that many aren't willing to answer or even entertain. But I challenge you, as you remember a man who did so much for others, to apply this question to your everyday life. At this time, hate and anger towards minorities and the Black community especially have become even more apparent in the past year. Hate sows seeds of doubt which turn into assumptions that then grow into anger. Hate takes control of the tongue, and anger clouds the mind of its many victims, who all too willingly accept it. And when this hateful tongue spits its twisted words to those undeserving, it suppresses the heart, mind, and soul of the one who receives the pitiful speech of hate, the one who is yet again silenced. But again and again they make themselves heard. With cries of victory, anguish, and pain, they scream with strong and powerful voices what their ancestors were not able to. All too often, these cries are ignored and belittled. That is the flaw. Some don't care to listen, some hear but don't listen, and some listen and ignore. King asks every one of us to sympathize, to mourn with those who mourn, to celebrate with those who celebrate, and to fight for those who cannot. No one owes me an explanation of America's past and current history with racism. I owe it, as someone born with privilege, to educate and to fight for the Black community and others who are affected by social injustices and racism. It's time to stop living in a way that only benefits ourselves and begin to live for others. This starts with love, because surely if you love someone, you'll be able to fight for them. One way that I can show my love for those suffering racial injustices is to be an ally. And by being an ally, I must start by educating myself. It's as simple as picking up an article, book, phone, or history textbook and reading. Let us lead our lives with vigor, with passion, and with love and respect. Let us cast off our hateful speech and our angry minds, and renew ourselves with the love that needs to be shown to so many hungry souls. We must use our voices, those beautiful voices that are able to protect those beautiful beings who are targeted every day because of the color of their skin. Your voice can be so powerful if you choose to use it, so please, use it. Do as King would have done. The pain and exhaustion of fighting the same battle for hundreds of years has plagued the bodies and souls of many. I beg you to join in this battle, to join in the fight for racial justice and equality. Do to others what you would like them to do for you. Let us not just remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but stand valiantly with the movement he started. Thank you.
Miriam, what grade are you in?
11th grade.
The wisdom that you shared, I wish the adult world would have it, so I'm incredibly impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. I would like to, I think the fourth and the last winner is joining us with through Zoom, Leah Quintero. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm going to be about the quote, "Arise." Martin Luther King Jr. left a lasting mark on this world. He was a civil rights legend and was an amazing man. In school, we are taught about him and his work, and we spend a few days a year around January learning about his life. But now, thinking about what would happen if MLK was alive, I believe he would be upset by how little progress has been made. King dedicated his entire life to racial justice, and although he undoubtedly changed the course of history, it's still as if we've only moved an inch in this race for equality, and we are miles away from the finish line. For years and years, people of color have been ignored and cast aside. They are the unheard that King talked about in his book. So it's no wonder that to get their voices heard, they have to burn a building down. These immense protests and riots that occurred over the last year could be a sign that the world has not forgotten all about MLK, all about what MLK did and what he fought for. His work could be what inspired thousands of people to get out of their houses and stand up for what they believe in. But now the question is, how do we continue to keep his legacy alive if there aren't these massive groups of people in the streets? To me, honoring so influential as MLK could be something as simple as putting up a poster in your room or writing a piece like this one. But sometimes those little things just don't feel like they're enough. Martin Luther King spent years protesting and speaking out, and was even killed for expressing his opinion. So it feels as if our actions, although they are honoring him away, are so trivial. The summer of 2020 was spent getting the attention of big politicians and people in power by rioting. But now, before they look away again, we have to get them to make a difference. We have to get them to sign bills and pass laws to make our streets safer for Black and brown kids. We have to get them to listen when people of color have something to say, and in that way, I believe we can keep Martin Luther King's legacy alive.
Thank you. I'll ask the same of you. Again, what grade level?
I'm in 8th grade.
8th grade. We're all, I think, fairly amazed here. I just wanted to add one thing that you had said, too, that I think Martin Luther King Jr. would be deeply disappointed and saddened by the world that is repeating so much of what he lived his life for. But I think he'd be so thankful and filled with gratitude for the people like the four of you tonight that came to share. And so he'd be really encouraged by you. So thank you for bringing to us this evening your insights and perspectives. We appreciate that. So I'll clap for everyone.
And now I would like to call Sana and Greg to come to the podium.
Give me 1 second to pull this down. Respected Mayor, council members, city staff, and community members gathered here today, good evening. My name is Sana Alazar. I am one of the commissioners on the Human Rights and Diversity Commission. And it is my honor and privilege today to announce the start of the annual Human Rights Awards process for 2021. The purpose of the award is to recognize those who work to create a welcoming and inclusive community spirit through their actions, activities, programs in our city. Human Rights Awards nominations are accepted in the following 4 categories, namely individual, youth, nonprofit, and business. As you all know, 2020 presented some innumerable challenges and tested our community's resilience. Despite it all, many have risen to the occasion to help others in need. Without doubt, there are organizations, businesses, groups, and individuals who are continuing to work tirelessly to bring community together, to build bridges, lift people's spirits during these difficult times, and treat everyone with dignity and respect. We, as the Human Rights and Diversity Commission, will be honored to be able to recognize them and the fact that they continually embody the Eden Prairie Manifesto. Nominations will be accepted until February 28th, that's 2/8, and nomination forms can be found by visiting the city's webpage at edenprairie.org, that's one word for our city, /Human Rights Award, one word again, or one can simply go to Google, just type in City of Eden Prairie, it's going to be the first link, and in the search field, if they put Human Rights Awards, that's also the first link. Alternate formats of the nomination form can be requested by contacting our commission's liaison. Her name is Megan Yerkes. Her phone number is 952-949-8394, and her contact information is also on the website. Once we receive the nominations, the commission will review them in March, and then the city council, you folks, will present them during the May council meeting. So with that, as always, I highly encourage everyone, city council, staff, community members, those who may be listening online, to please consider submitting nominations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Leeper, anything? Nope. Got down that Greg Leeper will be on hand. I think there's a speech now or
I'm
something.
on
no?
hand. You know, my kids, 8 and 6, really wanted to see me on TV tonight. So,
Well, they won't know it's you, but exactly.
no, just simply wanted to say on behalf of the Human Rights and Diversity Commission, Mayor, City Council, City staff, thank you so much for your support of our work. And can we just celebrate once again our young people and our award winners tonight?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. All right. Everyone in the audience, you're welcome to stay the entire time. We'll be done by midnight tonight. However, you're also, if you wish, you won't be rude if you get up and leave. We understand. Thank you again for coming and for participating. Appreciate that. Council, approval of the agenda. Prior to the motion, just always like to ask if anyone has any additional agenda items, possibly a council member report or something. Anybody? If not, then could I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, caught myself on the first one. All right, roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Toomey,
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right, moving on to the minutes. Are there any aspects or parts of the minutes you wish to question or correct? If not, could I have a motion to approve both?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes.
I did have a few corrections
Sure.
on the minutes, but I had told Rick.
Yes, Mayor, there was one sentence or one word in the crime fund gift or the crime fund donation that we fixed, and then the other thing was Councilmember Aho seems to always want to be with us because he was in the minutes for approving the claims, so we had to fix that. So
Interesting.
Councilmember Toomey caught that Councilmember Aho is not here to approve the claims, so we fixed that.
That's why every couple of years we do let someone new come onto the council just so they thoroughly read every single line of the minutes. I truthfully, back in 1995, I mean, I was just, every single line. And we would come, and back in that day, without computers, we would have 27 corrections. There had to have been a better way to do that. But thank you so much, Councilmember Toomey. This is now your job.
Thank you.
Okay. So I believe we still could put the two together, just you can say as corrected. So make a motion to approve the two as corrected. So is there such a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the following city council minute. Council workshop held Tuesday, January 5th, 2020. City council meeting held Tuesday, January 5th, 2020 with corrections.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Whoop, roll call. Okay. It takes me 2 or 3 of these and then I'll get it. So roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson, Mayor Case.
Aye. All right. It's okay, I get
Wait,
forgot.
what about me? Aye.
Yes. I knew I was missing somebody.
I was going to say, it sounded like I got forgotten, and I was going to say, that happens to me all the time in life, so that's not a big deal. Just for anyone, I always I'm a teacher, and I like people in the audience to understand what we're doing and also why I continue to seemingly make a mistake. So typically, we just vote, and we simply call the motion and we vote. But because we are a hybrid tonight with Councilmember Nelson at home and 4 of us here, state law requires a roll call vote on every single motion. So this is not new tonight. I should get through this thick skull of mine, but nonetheless, my habit after 24 years is not to do roll call. Okay, moving on, consent calendar. Are there any items A through E that anybody wishes to question any of them? You could also have one pulled if you wish for discussion. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar A to E? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, ready? Roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye, nice job. All right. Okay, we have no public hearings this evening. Payment of claims is the list of every expenditure, every item, every check that was cut over the time tonight to the last meeting back. It's a long list. It's pages and pages. We typically do peruse through it, and if there's any questions we have, so I'll ask Councilmember Toomey, who read every single item. Are there any, from anybody, any items that you wish to question? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the payment of claims. Are we good?
Yeah, everything was
Councilmember
good.
Toomey, all right. Motion.
Where are we?
We are
Yep.
on
Approve the
10.
payment of claim
Okay.
as submitted.
Great, second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right, we do have an ordinance, what am I trying to say, revision or something tonight. Mr. Getchell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. There's probably been a few occasions over the last 5 or 6 years where the council's discussed, and most recently at our last workshop, lawful gambling in Eden Prairie. And we have a nonprofit association that is looking at getting into the pull tab lawful gaming, charitable gaming business. And our code, dating back over 25 years, has a restriction that states that lawful gambling that's conducted on premise must be, the building must be owned by the nonprofit that's conducting the gambling. And this is obviously, this was the case with an association in Eden Prairie back in the 80s and into the 90s, but most lawful gaming, charitable gaming, pull tab situations involve nonprofits that would be leasing space in a restaurant or a facility. And so based on the desire of that association to possibly get into this line of business,
Fundraising, but yes.
we would need to update, we would need to update our city code to allow that. So obviously, as the council was talking about this, the updates of the code, apply to any group or organization that would do that. So even if the current nonprofit that's looking at getting into lawful gambling doesn't do that, I think the feeling is among staff and with the council that this is probably an outdated paragraph in our ordinance, that even at a future date, if you were to have pull tabs, you would allow someone to lease space in a setting. Another thing I'll mention is this is simply an update to the code, to the paragraph that I just mentioned. Any association that would want to undertake this effort still needs to work through the state of Minnesota and the city licensing, and would need to come back and get a gambling permit from the city. So this is not an approval of any particular entity being able to conduct charitable gaming or lawful gambling in Eden Prairie. It simply updates the code to say that you do not need to own the building that you operate the gaming in. And as you know, we discussed for a good half an hour at the workshop this potential gaming operation. We can certainly answer any questions that you may have. We would have a second reading that would come back at the next council meeting, but that's only 2 weeks from now, and we recommend that we still go through with 2 separate readings.
Okay. And you said this, that this is a revision to a current ordinance, and an update. I just want to underscore for our residents that this is not a new philosophical direction for the city at all. People that have been in Eden Prairie long enough to remember the American Legion building that sat across from the Miller Park entrance years and years ago. Then it became a church, and now it was torn down. There's an apartment building there. Back when the American Legion was there, they had pull tabs. Because again, this ordinance fit them because they owned their building and they ran their pull tab operation. The other thing is that we give temporary gambling permits for the Lions Club to run bingo in the summer. This is not a new philosophy. We are updating our ordinance to allow some nonprofit associations, if they wish, to utilize restaurants if the restaurant agreed and they worked out the contract and arrangement. So that's all we're doing is updating our ordinance. I know you said that. I just wanted to underscore that, again, we're not venturing down a new direction.
Yeah, and I'll just add that there are many other pieces of the code we're not updating that deal with the rules and regulations of getting the permit and how the funds are used, and there's quite a bit of state law regarding how the funds are used. And we do have a limit, and we're not changing that either, but we have a limit on 4 up to 40,000, because at the time I think that ordinance went through, that was the amount of population we had in Eden Prairie, and we would allow 1 for every 10,000 of population after that. So theoretically, right now, we would allow at most 6, and we have none right now. And as you said, Mayor, we used to have 1. So we are choosing not to change that language, but I think it's important to know that that's where our current ordinance stands as well.
And the current association that's looking to maybe go down this path also talked with us a lot about fairness, and we certainly want to always keep that in mind too. We're not favoring one association or anything. We're simply
Correct.
availing to associations that come to us. Right now there happens to be just one, but they're interested very much in fairness as well. So, Council, any further discussion, questions, comments you want to make? You okay to vote? I mean, we did spend some time just to let the public know at a workshop that was open to the public on this. So this is not new to the council. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending the City Code, Chapter 5, Section 5.40, relating to gambling.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Toomey. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Whoop. Oh, I thought I missed calling on someone. No, it's a voice. Okay, I have to make several of these mistakes every evening. Yes, please, roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson. Aye. Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. I'm going to get so used to roll call that when we come back together, normally, and we don't have roll call, I'm going to start calling roll call. So it's just, I'm a creature of habit. Mr. Getcho, we have, I believe you'll pass it off here, but we have a report with the Parks and Recreation Director. Can you want me to get right to Mr. Laham, or you want to go ahead?
We do have something before that, Mayor. I'm sorry. We have a couple appointments that we need to redo.
Oh,
Right
like
before-
item 13, like I blew by. You're right.
That's
Do you want me
okay.
to say something about that, or do you want to?
I can cover that really quick.
Okay.
At the first meeting of the year, which was the last meeting, you made all of the appointments to the different commissions, and we need to change 2 of the appointments due to the availability and the calendar of the council members. So I think we are switching the 494 and Southwest Transit Commission appointments between Councilmember Freiberg and Councilmember Toomey. So Councilmember Toomey would serve on 494, and Councilmember Freiberg would serve on Southwest Transit. They would flip what you had approved at the last meeting due to what fits everyone's schedule best.
Sounds good. And they've been contacted, and they are in agreement with this. Okay.
I sure hope so. No, yeah, they have.
I guess speak now. All right. Would someone make a motion for the first one approving Councilmember Toomey to the I-494 Corridor Commission?
I move to approve the appointment of Lisa Toomey to the I-494 Corridor Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm assuming no further discussion, so roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson. Aye. Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right. Will someone make a motion to appoint Mark Freiberg to the Southwest Transit Board?
I will move to appoint Mark Freiberg to the Southwest Transit Board as the Eden Prairie appointed representative to complete the 2-year term ending December 31st, 2021.
I
Is there a
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson. Aye. Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Laheimer, I gave you tons of time to be prepared there. Mr. Getcho, do you want to say anything prior to Mr. Laheimer coming?
Yeah, I'd like to say something that will make him sit back down a second time, but no, I'm not going to. No, the floor is his, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Louthammer.
Your Honor, council members, I'm going to take you a little deeper into our planning process tonight, but I also promise I'll be brief while doing that. Riley Lake Park, as many of you know, a couple years ago, we updated along the beach. We updated the parking area and also many of the areas just adjacent to the beach. One of the areas that we left out, so I'll show you here on screen, is the play area. And the reason for doing that was the play area still had, we felt, a couple years of life left in it before it needed to be removed and replaced. We've come to the point where it does need to be removed and replaced, and we've taken a look at that entire area, kind of how it interacts with the pavilion that's up there, and we've worked with a landscape architecture firm, ISG, and they help us with our planning process and put these concepts to paper. And so what I'm going to show you is some of those concepts and how we went about going through that planning process. So we sit down with them, myself and Matt Bourne, our Parks and Natural Resources Manager, sit down with the landscape architects, and we give them the project goals. And in this case, first and foremost was replace that older piece of play equipment that was there. We also wanted to improve accessibility and circulation, and when we go over some of the designs, I'll show you how we can address that. Improve sight lines. Some of that intuitively goes with improving the accessibility and the circulation, but also when you think about sight lines around a play structure, think about how people can see the kids that are interacting there, the sight lines from where the parents are sitting, the sight lines from the pavilion. But in this case of Riley, as you remember, we started referring to it as the People's Resort, the sight lines to some of the natural beauty that's there, especially the lakefront. And so I'll show you how that was integrated into the plan as well. The first phase that happened a couple years ago was very well received, and we've learned a lot of good things from that. And so we wanted to make sure that we integrated this next phase similar to what was done in the first phase. Gathering opportunities, you'll see that show up. Some of the areas at Riley, I think we could auction off the times to be able to sit in the Adirondack chairs. Super popular. And so I'll show you how we're suggesting expanding upon that. And then integrate with the pavilion. This is our largest picnic pavilion out there. Very, very busy. How does it complement and how does the play area fit in with what the pavilion is being used for? So we give that and we do a site visit with the landscape architects. They then go back and they start to put it on paper. And they usually do several concepts. And these are small because I'll show you what comes out of them in a larger form. But we look at several concepts and then we give them reactions to what we think works well. One would work better than the other. This piece can meld into the other. And it really comes together then with something that's a little more of a preferred concept. As you heard our Parks Commission Chair, Larry Link, tonight tell you of their involvement in things in 2020, this was something that they've been involved with very recently here in 2021. And so we bring this similar presentation to the Parks Commission, get some of their feedback, and they really gave us some good ideas to be able to enter into as we go to final plan and construction documents. Before I go into the details of the plan, I just want to show you some of the images, and they are images of potential amenities because these won't be exactly what goes there, but it gives you an idea. So some of these you'll notice look really familiar of some of the things that have been very successful along the beach at Riley. We want to stay with that more natural theme, so what they're suggesting and we agree with is a little more nature-based play structure so that it kind of blends in versus the bright colors and lots of metals that would stand out. And then using some of, instead of the really structured concrete walls, maybe more stone. We know that grilling is something that's very popular at Riley. You see that every Saturday and Sunday or weeknights when you're there. And so to try to help that with the pavilion especially, you'll see some concepts of an outdoor grill, outdoor kitchen that's associated with that. Some other concepts that would be included, again, I mentioned the Adirondack chairs, some of the lounge chairs, how they then get placed onto the deck areas. The picnic and chairs and tables, those look really similar to what's there at Riley. And also we've had good success with them at Round Lake. You see some of the planting palette, just to give you an idea of some of the shrubs and trees that would go into this plan. And then finally, to a little more refined look at what the plan would include. And so the pavilion is there. That's already in place and anchored. If you look up next to the pavilion, this is where more of the grills would be located. Down here at number 12, some bike racks. You're used to already seeing the interpretive sign that's there. Having a little more of an open space, potentially for some yard games, and also some sight lines and a buffer between the play areas and the pavilion, but still close enough that if you're using the pavilion, the play area is accessible. One of the suggestions from the Parks Commission was to have a small walk area through here. We're really careful. We don't want bikes coming through this area, so you'll see these are more narrow. There's a bike path that comes through from, actually connects in with the regional trail. So we want to be really careful with the speed, and we're using some of the concepts that we've used at Round Lake Park as bikes kind of pass nearby the play area. This is the play container. Over here in number 1 is younger kids, the older kids' equipment here. Above that, and all of this grade-wise flows down towards the lake. So this is higher up here, lower down here. If you imagine some of the, over at Starring Lake and also Round Lake, if you imagine the sunbrellas, we call them, with tables underneath, they're a little bit higher overlooking the play area. So if you're a parent and you have kids, and we know that anytime we provide shade, that's some of the most popular places in the park system. These have held up well, and we would recommend putting those in this location. That little bit of a raised deck area where you might have some lounge chairs or some Adirondacks in through here, and then also a little bit of a walkway in here that would have some of the Adirondacks closer to the lake, where you might imagine a couple people earlier in the morning meeting and having a cup of coffee, or later at night watching the sunrise or sunset from there. We're looking at how do we expand this. Part of these curb cuts, as you know, Mr. Ellis has shared with you before, those curb cuts and truncated domes, the accessibility standards continue to change. And so we need to upgrade those as well, but also to create a place where we might be able to have a food truck or our own city healthy food wagon be able to come in and serve the area during the summertime. As I mentioned before, some of those native plantings, making sure that they're the type that don't necessarily get in the way of sight lines when you'd want the sight line, but also providing some of that buffer from large spanses of pavement. So where do we go from here? Again, we've gone through the pre-design. The item on your agenda tonight that we're asking for approval is to enter into a professional services agreement with ISG to do the construction documents, and that's what allows us then to go out for bid. And we'll be taking those documents in different iterations back to the Parks Commission to take a look at them. We then go out for bid. We hopefully find a contractor that's our low bid contractor that we believe that is of quality, that can do a good job, and that the price is a reasonable price. If we find that, we bring that back to you, recommending that we enter into that contract. If we don't think it's a reasonable price, maybe we find out that material costs are so high or people are so busy. There have been times where we've said, let's reject those bids. and put this off or rebid it until we feel comfortable that we're getting the right and good value for that. Likely, we would be coming back here in the spring with a recommendation to move forward with the project and select the low responsible contractor. We really look at this in 3 different phases or funding methods. One is our trails, as you see on those plans. We are reshaping and in some cases rehabilitating trails and curb cuts, so we have a funding source for that. We also have a funding source for basically replacing the play equipment, and that one is a little bit unique to us in that our liquor store profits help fund that. And you'll see some of that demonstrated on some of the posters that we put at our liquor store. So that's another funding source. A third funding source that we use when we do some additions, some things that aren't currently there now, but we feel that'll be betterments for the park, and now's the time to do them, is our cash park fees. So when developers come to us, part of the requirement, either on a per unit basis or a square foot basis or acre basis, we will collect fees from them in order to take care of the park system. So as we have been looking at the funding sources, those are really 3. But a 4th one is we think there's some dollars that will be available to us from the county to help fund this as well. And that got pushed out a little bit, so we won't know for another couple months if we do become awarded that grant, but we're hoping that it will and that can help defer some of the costs. So, and then after that, construction. We wish that we could do this kind of construction in the winter when people aren't using the play area. But what we would try to do is determine, do we do it the first part of the construction season, April, May, June, or do we do it the last part of the construction season, August, September, October, but trying to stay away from that very, very high use June and July time frame. So that would be part of our contract with the construction company, is how do we best time it so that we can still get the most use, but also afford enough time to be able to do a project like this. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, the action item for you tonight is to request approving the contract with ISG to go forward with developing construction documents.
Council, any questions? We're looking for a motion then.
I move to approve the standard agreement for professional service with ISG Inc. for design and construction document development for Riley Lake Park Playground at the cost not exceed $46,200.
Is there a second? Or did you?
I'll second.
Kathy did.
Oh, Kathy did.
Oh, Kathy did?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nelson.
Or Nelson, sorry.
So council, well, we've got Mr. Lotheimer sitting here, but any further questions? You're okay with this? Are we ready to vote?
I just had,
Councilmember Toomey.
I had one question, but you kind of answered it about timing, like how long would it take once everything got approved for them to complete it? You're not sure, are you sure? A couple months?
It's at least a couple months to be able to do it. The danger with the spring is sometimes we don't know when load restrictions will come off the roads, and if it's a wet spring, that can be a detriment to getting the project started as well. If I had to guess right now, I think as we get closer to writing the contract, we would look at more of an end of the summer to get started with a substantial completion by November 1st.
Thank you.
Councilmember Narayan.
Yeah, when you describing the whole area, I didn't hear anything about water fountains. I'm assuming there's water fountains in that area, so people biking or playing, they can drink water.
Yeah, there's a current water fountain just off from the pavilion, and then there's also one just down towards the beach. So I don't believe we would add any additional. We would continue to use the ones that are in place.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, anything else? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Toomey,
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. Mr. Getro and I had chatted earlier in the week about a possible comment that he might make based on conversations with the police department and the fire department here. And I forgot to bring it up during the council member report, so I'm going to kind of pull a chair's prerogative here and just add an item at the very end and ask Mr. Getro to comment. What this is coming from is, it's based on really a conversation that I'm sure many of us have had in America after the insurrection of January 6th, just with how shaken we are and how stunned and angered. And conversations with Mr. Getcho regarding what intelligence he regularly gets and our police and fire get from state authorities, from federal authorities, from Homeland Security, just to let the people of Eden Prairie feel comfortable, not that we can prevent anything at all times, but that we're in the know as much as we can be. And that's what I'd like Mr. Getcho maybe to share, who meets with whom, how often, how regularly, who reports in. You pretty much have your ear to everything, so I thought if you could just share how we are integrated deeply into county, state, federal authorities.
Yeah, Mayor, it's a great question, because people, you know, when they've been watching the news and they're reading the paper and they're hearing about everything that's happening, you know, they might ask a question, you know, about what about the city they live in or the city that they work in. And I mean, at the outset, I will say, in terms of the information that we're getting, is things are seeming to be much calmer, you know, as we sit here on Tuesday night, prior to an inauguration, than maybe people felt even a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But you know, in any environment, our police department, and our region for that matter, do an excellent job of communicating. There is not really any kind of a turf battle or any situation where the state and the county and the suburbs are not communicating amongst each other. So just a couple comments that I would make, aside from, you know, just answering your question, that yes, those organizations do share information on a regular basis, you know, within the police department and the emergency management, and then shared with the city manager and city council if needed. I think I emailed all of you an update on a threat assessment, or where a threat could stand last weekend or before the weekend hit. You know, but we have a few people in our own police department that are dedicated to following trends, following issues, monitoring social media, that do that on a regular basis all the time. I mean, this is what our chief, you know, likes to say, you know, having some people in our police department that sometimes predict crime before it occurs, you know, based on the data that we receive. So we have an excellent crime analyst who is actually here receiving an award at your last council meeting, who does a lot of that work. He was here. We also, as a city, we're one of the cities that we actually are in. We belong to, have an officer in the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. So having the city playing a direct role in that task force, and we're in many task forces in the region, I think we're positioned to get some pretty firsthand information and knowledge, being a part of that group, on what may be coming from the feds that could affect us locally. So you're right, Mary, you can't prevent everything from happening, but I think, you know, we pretty much have connections in a lot of different places and get a lot of pretty good intelligence. And I think part of that even had to do with this past summer. We had very little, if any, unrest in Eden Prairie. I think we talked about this at a council meeting this summer, at all, that spilled over here from Minneapolis. And I think some of that had to do with having some good intel and being able to deploy our officers in areas where they might have been seeing on social media that there could have been some activity, and there wasn't, or anything they may have seen, they were able to get ahead of.
Okay, I appreciate that. Council, did that spark any questions in you, or is that enough of a report for now? Okay. I had received some questions from some residents. Was curious more myself as well. I'm also part of a mayor's group that is connected regularly in a text thread, and we do communicate at least weekly, if not more. And I also occasionally am privy, and probably as much through Mr. Getchell as anyone, with intel reports coming in as well. So, all right. With that, then, if there's nothing to come before the council this evening, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the city council meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Freiberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Nelson,
Oh, I see her nod. So there you go.
Councilmember Toomey,
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right, this meeting is adjourned.